Clay, I usually like to open up our podcasts by trying to bring in something tangential that we can talk about, bring a little bit of our personal lives into it. So for a constant throb, have you ever thought about shooting a woman?
Why the fuck are you saying this to me?
I don't think we live in New England. I don't think we have enough of a gun culture where it's something I've thought about. Is the only reason why I haven't thought about it.
No, I don't know if I ever seriously thought about shooting anybody. Probably not.
Probably
maybe.
I guess it depends on how you define seriously in this context.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Video games, I guess, right? If you thought about
Have I made like the finger guns, like an angry finger guns at one point and been like, if I had a gun, it would be real right now? Maybe. But, who among us haven't?
Yeah, it's a tough sell. But I think we've all thought horrible things. But maybe, I was just thinking maybe in more of a gun culture part of the country, you do think about that. Okay, instead of like, we're up here, we're in like the Star Trek Picard where we're fantasizing about running them over with like a Tesla or something. They're fantasizing about just going the old fashioned route.
I honestly don't think I really have violent thoughts like that as much. And I know it sounds like bullshit, but maybe I just don't interact with enough people anymore that I have like a kill list. Like even when I'm driving,
there, my friend.
Even when I'm driving, it's like I just acknowledge the piece of shit move you just did, and then kind of move on with my life.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't. I think in order to develop that sort of intensity, it needs to be someone you see all the time. Like when I was in high school, there were plenty of people that I wanted to drop like an anvil on because I was just sick of them. But I just, I work from home, so the only person who I'd like to shoot with the only thing I'd like to shoot with a gun is my computer most of the time.
Yeah. Get your controller guns in order. No, it's I don't think so either. I don't think I have violent thoughts. If I do, they're in like a sort of comical sense. There's no there's nothing serious about it. But
I mean, when I go to the gun range, I buy the target that's like a caricature of like an Irishman.
Right. Yeah,
but aside from that, I don't know if there's any deep-seated, internalized racism towards my own people.
No, I don't think so either. So, no, neither of us have thought about shooting anybody, let alone a woman. But maybe we've thought about just sort of awkward interactions we've had, and maybe we've stewed on that for the rest of our day. So, we're going to talk about A Constant Throb. This is the third to last episode of Deadwood. We're going to take a break. We're going to play the music. We're going to come back, and we're going to break it down.
You're listening to a podcast that is a lie agreed upon. Join Wes and Clay as they discuss HBO's Deadwood and tell you something pretty.
This is A Constant Throb, directed by Mark Tinker, written by W. Earl Brown, who's only the second cast member to get a writing credit.
I was going to say, that's
Dan Doherty.
Dan, yeah.
Yep, Dan Doherty. I forget who the first one was. Let me see if I can quickly get through this and figure out who it is. It is...
Do you know how they get elevated to that point? Because with Milch, it seems kind of... like he would take that stuff pretty seriously about letting cast members write things.
He did. So it was apparently Doherty had been working as like an unpaid intern as like a writer's assistant on the side.
Uh-huh.
So he was putting in the reps, and then he got a reward at the end of it. And the other one that was written by an actor on the show is Ricky Jay, wrote Jules Boot is Made for Walking in season 1.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, although it gives you a sense into what the written by credit means, because in the Deadwood Bible, or Earl Brown says that he estimates that maybe only 7 or 8 lines of his made it in unaltered to the show.
Sure, yeah.
So a lot of it is just he writes a draft. Milch gave him the idea about what the layout was supposed to be, and he wrote a draft, and then it gets rewritten heavily by Milch at the end.
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard for most television.
Yeah, for small prestige television like this too, like the where you actually have control over things like that.
Yeah. I know the way the Simpsons work is they kind of, as a group, conceptual, or it's, I think whoever pitches the idea for the episode writes the first draft after people kind of like pitch it around a little bit, and then everybody kind of
reads it as a room together.
Yes, they sort of punch it up as a room, and then they go back, and the same person goes back and redoes the second draft. But it's very much like a group effort.
Yeah. I'm sure it's the way for a lot of this stuff. But yeah, that's why the credits maybe don't mean as much as you would expect. It is pretty much all David Miller. I don't think you can have the consistency of language in the show without that rewrite process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be. It seems so specific that it feels like it would take a long time for anybody else to really click into his style without it feeling like an impression,
Yes, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe it's just rewriting everything to make it sound like it's not an impression. He just writes it in his own words.
It's like that fourth season of Community where it all felt like it was like, this is what a Community episode is, right? Right, guys?
Yep.
And it just wasn't quite there.
Not the same. Directed by Mark Tinker, written by W. Earl Brown. In this one called The Constant Throb, Alma is shot at in the thoroughfare. Swearingen leaps down from his balcony to escort her into the gem. Adams guards Sophia at the schoolhouse. Hearst tells Jerry that the elections will not inconvenience him. Jewel brings food for Alma. Stapleton continues to beg Claudia for sexual congress. Hearst sends Jerry back to Yankin, where he will direct the troops' votes. Reinforcements are called from Cheyenne. Doherty brings Ellsworth back to the camp, slung over his shoulder. Swearingen asks Alma to complete her walk to the bank to, quote, get the fucking angler fulminating. Hearst spits in Farnham's face. Hearst's man's Barrett brings a note for Swearingen. Barrett is combative, and Swearingen cuts his throat. Jane tells Joni of her dream about Bill's death. So we're entering the final run here, A Constant Throb. This is generally, I think, when the show starts to pick up a little bit more of a energy going into the last couple episodes. That's my memory of it anyway, because it's been kind of a meandering season, I guess. I still love it, but I guess a lot of reviews call this a meandering season. I feel it meanders as much as all the previous seasons did in a lot of ways. But yeah, this is A Constant Throb. I love this episode, but I'm curious what you thought about it.
We're meant for maybe rethinking your tenure here, huh? Maybe two in the aftermath. The shot's author had designed Mr. Ellsworth had been moved to take steps, or Sheriff Bullitt would. That'd justify a violent answer.
The author being Mr. Hearst.
Him? Or him having made cause with your first husband's family. Pinkerton's presiding over the vows. We've wired Bullock to counsel restraint. We've Ellsworth trussed up downstairs. Little in the past commends me to your trust. I'd ask you, accepting the premise that you are bait, not quarry, complete your walk to the bank. Get that fucking angler fulminating. Tangling his fucking tackling the fucking like.
Mr. Sword.
Sorry.
I also love this episode. This might be one of my favorites of the season.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the funniest, top to bottom. It's just everything. Everybody's got kind of like a bit of a zip behind what they're doing, and the shooting at Alma is a really interesting way to kick things off. Probably my favorite scenes with Jewel in the entire series, arguably.
Every step a fucking adventure.
Yeah, and it's and it's really good. It's really funny. It balances that stuff in the way that the show's really good at, where it can be very funny, but also it can get pretty serious on a turn on a dime.
Yep.
The only thing knowing that there's only 3 episodes or 2 episodes left now at this point before everything goes away, I can't help but feel like we're just wasting time with Langrish.
Yeah.
Is this his daughter that showed up and his estranged wife or something? I don't give a shit.
We can focus. The Langrish thing is the weakest part of this episode, I think, by far. And I guess I'm glad that you're confused about it. I'm very confused by the plot, I guess, or like I'm confused by it while I'm watching it, and when it's over, I kind of understand what they were going for with it. it's just I'm extremely distracted that it's like, has this woman been in the camp this entire time?
I have no idea.
Where did she come from? And the way that he's talking about the prostitute who's going to join the troupe, right? Because he boots this woman out so that this other woman can take her spot is the basic like.
Oh, is that what happened?
That's what's happening. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that.
There's a stout woman, the Countess Berman, fires and hires for the troupe. You will meet her at the theater should you appear and apply. The devout Shaughnessy has a week in advance to your account.
Take it back from him. I won't take money from you.
Are you not being quite absurd in the self-serving way of your sex? You come here, penniless, a supplicant.
For learning?
Well. And to learn, must you not live? And how will you do so amidst the thoroughfare's depravities?
Let me stay in the theater.
At a minimum. For the career to which you aspire, you show the requisite presumption.
I thought the woman with the book, with the drawings in it, was like his estranged wife.
It's someone he's in a romantic relationship with, but we have not
Okay.
seen her to this point. And it gets confusing, in my opinion, because you don't see the other person that they're replacing this woman with ever. She's just mentioned in dialogue. So because you don't see her, I think that there's a tendency to confuse that he's talking about a different person when you think he's talking about this woman the whole time.
He's talking about the girl, the dancer from the previous episode, right?
Yeah, the sort of like what do they call
gypsy kind of castanets dancing?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And she's not in the episode
I don't think so.
because
right?
there's like 3 women who look exactly like her that are in the episode. So, at first, I thought the girl who talks to Cy was her. But that's apparently no. She's like, I'm from Cincinnati. It's like, okay, that's not her.
That's Jen and from Cincinnati. Yeah, she's a new character too.
I wonder if she's related to John Anon from Cincinnati. I was kind of, and they do that thing that they do on the show so often, where it's like we're getting the middle of this story. We are not getting the build up to it.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's particularly confusing in this case because it kind of feels like a story that you have to have seen this character for a little bit before you reveal this. So otherwise you end up in this very confused space about like trying to figure out what their relationship is and what he's doing for her. Like, so my problem with it is that I actually think outside of its execution, it's a very good Langrish story, I think, because it's like his sort of, it carries on this theater troupe thing about all the world's indeed a stage, which I talked about, and like how they're all kind of performative, and he's not allowing himself to have like a personal relationship because this like performance is the thing that's taking priority for him.
Sure.
So it's kind of a sense of like how he can never really be happy because he's always being driven in different directions. I just think execution wise, it's extremely confusing what's going on. And the confusion the storyline doesn't run long enough where you can get a sense of, oh, I understand this now until the very end. So while it's happening, you're like, what is this? Like, why is this happening right now?
Yeah, when you put it that way, yeah, that is pretty interesting. I think it would be better if we had, more time with Langrish to really get to the heart of his that element. But yeah, having this woman just show up out of nowhere and then immediately be kicked to the curb is a little bit difficult to follow.
Yeah, it's not. It's unfortunate. I mean, this is the theater troupe. You know, I had mentioned before, and I kind of spoiled it, I suppose, for you. But it's like this is what the theater troupe does this season. It's these kind of little minor things, and why
does he have to fire the other woman? They can't.
I guess there's just not enough.
Add someone to their troupe.
Well, I guess you get a little bit of a sense where the women are extremely catty with each other.
True. Yes.
So he has to like manage it. And that's what I like about the episode. That's what I like about that storyline too, is that he is dishonest with them at the end because he's saying like, can't we all just get along, when he's the one that's like betraying people at the same time, you know? So he's putting on this brave face and saying that for the good of the troupe, everyone should just get along and like, just deal with it and turn the other cheek. But he he's acting exactly the opposite of it. So I think there's depth to the story. It's just kind of cockamanily told, where it doesn't really fit into anything, and it's distracting that you've never seen these characters before.
Yeah. It's so strange that they choose to do this. Like, even the whole episode kind of starts in the middle of a story to a certain extent, because it's, they fire at Alma and then stuff is going down, and then they just casually mention that Seth is not there and he
in
went
some
other town. It's like, oh,
politicking.
okay. I keep forgetting that this show does this, where it's like you're not necessarily going to be privy to every movement of every character. Sometimes it just starts with them in certain places. Yeah. Which is, again, it's not bad. It just takes getting used to. And 3 seasons in, apparently not used to it yet.
No, agreed. And I think what happens, the Langry storyline is saved a lot by Brian Cox, I think, because he's great in it. Like, even if you don't understand what's going on, he's doing the best he can to sell what the emotional, like, truth to the story is supposed to be. But yes, Bullock is not around. This one moves. The reason I like this one, because it's what you were saying. It has a outside of the Langrish theater troupe storyline, it has a certain energy to it that has not been in the season really to this point. It feels like they're trying to wrap things up, right? Like the most obvious way, I guess you can bring it up, is that this is the episode where they've been wondering what Hearst has been doing the entire season. That's been like a running plot line, is that they're never quite sure what the actions are he's taking and why he's doing it.
Yeah.
And they seem to identify in this one, he's actually acting out of boredom a lot of the time. And Hearst himself backs that up, because when he has this scene with EB where he's pissed off about what's happening with his man over at Swearingen's, he goes down and he yells and he takes it out on EB. Mm-hmm. He has a line in there where he I forget, I don't have exactly what he says, but it's along the lines of like, he's waiting for a result and he's very impatient about it. Mm-hmm. And Hearst doesn't deal well with impatience and boredom and not being sure of what's going on, so he's been stirring the pot. And they've been building to this, but it's been done in episodes where you never really feel like it's a I guess you think that you might not ever get an answer about why Hearst does the things that he does. But in this one, they kind of identify it. And through identifying it, it's the first one where there's this cathartic taking it out on Hearst's man, which is this like the Swearingen torturing that guy and then killing him at the end. And so it's one of those cathartic episodes that you feel like you've been building for, and it feels like very happy and like relieving when it's all said and done, but it also has an energy that carries it through all that stuff. And I think that it's a very lively episode, I guess, in that way. And it makes you sort of like, you're fist pumping for taking it out on this guy, but at the same time, I think it's going to follow the Deadwood example of all good things have bad outcomes somewhere down the line. Sure. So we'll see where it goes.
How well do you know the other guy?
Who would that be?
My man Dougherty killed, the captain.
We served in the 69th New York.
Was that a MiG regiment?
Mm-hmm. What were you doing?
Cutting throats.
I was asking whose flag you were under.
The famous Cocksuckers Brigade.
Is that so?
Command of the All-Whore Detachment. Distress you when my man downed your friend?
Let me tell you something, Mr. Swearingen. You don't scare me. And you don't fucking know what happened with the 69th New York. I will tell you this. I didn't like what happened to Joe Turner. Mr. Hearst came to him and said, make it last, even if you gain the upper hand and can kill him. And I think that was halfway selfish of Mr. Hearst, whereas Joe could have killed your man and didn't, and look how it wound up. But that's as much as I feel like saying, and that's neither here nor fucking there.
Fair enough. All right, then.
All right. And I'll tell you this. You don't seem halfway like such a halfway bad fucking person. So should I tell Mr. Hearst that there's no message?
Yes! So, you shoot at a fucking woman?
Beat that poor newspaper bastard? Scare that Chinese with your fucking horses? How many ribs you think you broke?
I feel like I broke 2 or 3 ribs.
I'm talking about that newspaper man's ribs, you fucking cunt.
Yeah, I mean, it's Hearst is getting impatient, right? Because he always gets what he wants, and he's not getting what he wants this time around. It's harder for him to work his way through and get at the old color.
Yep.
And so he's forced to wait. And so I can see I was thinking about that as I was watching it. I was like, man, he spends so much time just standing out on that porch, just looking at stuff.
Yeah, he's like the Grinch.
What's he
stares down at the who's. Yeah.
Like I would do that for like, I don't know, a cup of coffee, and then go back in. But he seems to be out there all the time. And if you're actively waiting for something, that can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
The interesting thing you're saying about the torturing of Hearst's guy.
Yeah, let me find out what that guy's name is. Barrett. Yeah.
Barrett. That's a really interesting scene too, because I didn't quite feel that catharsis of fuck this guy, because they kind of go out of their way to make him appear as though he's kind of a sniveling shithead.
Yep.
And he's not. Whereas every other scene he's been in has been sort of like he's the man who's gonna do the dirty work, and
he's the head
one
Pinkerton.
who's gonna And the way that they play him is always sort of like fairly competent in his evil, and in his maliciousness. And so like it's to precede that scene by the scene where Hearst yells at him about reading the letter.
Yep.
And he's kind of stammering and stuttering, and he's like, well, the last guy delivered something to Al. Didn't do very well for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Just joking, though. Just joking. And then later, in the scene with Al, before he starts getting the shit kicked out of him, he's still pretty weak for the most part. He
gives up the information.
Yeah, it's a fascinating way to play that character, because you think it would be they're going to get one, but as I'm watching it, I'm like, I don't know, this guy seems as much of a just trying to survive as anybody else, the way they play him like this.
Yeah, he's
and I mean, maybe that's for the better, because I don't really know that this show has never really reveled in the murder of people as like something to cheer. And so maybe doing that as a way to keep that consistent, where it's like, this guy sucks and he deserves to go down, but we're going to make sure you still don't really feel good about it when it happens.
Yeah, I find it cathartic, because you do have to remember that this is the guy who attacks Merrick for no good reason, really, just because Merrick published something. He's doing Hearst's dirty work. He's bringing in the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons are spoiling to... as they say, he shoots at Alma not with the intention to kill Alma in this, but that they want to draw a reaction from other people who are seen as threats to Hearst. So they want Bullock to react, and they want Ellsworth to react to this, so they can kill those two and get away with it. And so there is a maliciousness to the Pinkertons too, just because they're like the army for the wealthy and they're the army for Hearst at this point. I find it cathartic in that sense, and also just the reason I love the Hearst thing, where he makes him read the letter and he sort of stammers through it and he says, you don't read so well. I think that's like a great Deadwood Milch thing, which is that he can't read the letter, and the only point of that scene is to fit into the context of Hearst, because Hearst is pissed off, so he takes it out on this guy. But what it's doing is it's laying the stage for the metaphor that this guy can't read what Swearingen is going to do to him. Like they're setting up that he's not particularly, he can't read the situation in the same way that he can't read the letter. And so I love that stuff, because what feels like a throwaway scene, which is that you're like, why is Hearst yelling at this guy? Or like, why does he care about this? Leads to him selling out this Barrett to go over to Swearingen. And the final catharsis of it is that Hearst has had his boot on the neck of the camp for so long that this is the first time that it feels like the tables have really turned against him in a way, because he also doesn't know at the end what happened to Barrett, because it's not clear to me whether he realizes that Barrett was murdered or if he thinks he actually just ran away because he didn't want to deal with us anymore. So, Swearingen has turned the tables, and he's given Hearst his own version of that map of the X's in the bar and stuff. They're like, figure this out for yourself,
Yeah, and it does a good job of setting up the fact that he can't read, because when he goes to Al's, Al holds up that sign that says, "I'm going to fucking kill you." And he just doesn't even doesn't even read it.
He also defended Captain Turner.
That's true. Yeah. I really like that scene when he makes him read the letter, because he looks down at the letter and he goes, "Yeah, that's a good letter." And he's like, "Read it out loud."
Prove to me that you are learned, or whatever he says.
It's all there. You said it all. I mean, what else is there to say, George?
Yeah. It's a great Hearst episode, too. I like Angry Hearst. I think that he's quite enjoyable. The one time Amy let out an audible, like, oh, when EB, the toadiest of toadies, gets spit in the face, and you actually feel bad for EB at the time.
Yeah. They use Angry Hearst in fits and starts throughout the season, and so to see him kind of at that level the whole episode is pretty indicative of where he is emotionally.
Yeah.
Because he does tend to, when he gets that way, he doesn't really always make great decisions.
No, he doesn't. Right. Yeah. I love his
for someone who's claims to be so calculating, those are the points at which when he still lashes out kind of emotionally.
Yes, yeah, and as they say here, to maybe not alleviate boredom, but he does lash out to do something just to sort of stir the pot up and keep himself interested. I guess the metaphor is the shark there, right? You have to keep moving. His scene with Jerry kills me. I love those scenes.
Yes.
Are you saying you want to fuck me? Which is a great callback to Steve the Drunk, who said the same thing to Jerry when he got attacked.
Oh, did he really? Oh, to Jerry? That's really funny. But the I can't remember that actor's name. Ned Ryerson. I can't remember his name.
Tobolowsky.
Yeah, Stephen Tobolowsky. His delivery of the follow-up is perfect, where he's like, "I forgot that part of the story. I'm sorry."
Are you intending to have homosexual congress with me? Then he says, "Get off your knees," because he's like trying to beg forgiveness or whatever.
And then the way that he like sidesteps his way through the exposed posts to get out after trying the door that's locked. Man, great acting. This show is absolutely top to bottom.
What a world. A woman in innocent transit. A wayward shot from some watering hole, do you suppose, prompted by a surfeit of spirits? Exuberant punctuations of some sort?
Do you believe anything you say?
I am hypothesizing.
And have you some private hypothesis as to my possible role?
In the shooting at Mrs. Ellsworth?
In the rising of the sun?
I would hypothesize as to the latter possibility, sir, before imagining you involved with the first.
Come, Jerry, my holdings butt up against hers. I value efficiencies and economies of consolidation. Haven't I reason to nudge her toward a sale?
Men of a certain caliber cannot allow fastidious morality to distract them from the exigencies of commerce, can they, Mr. Hearst? And did you heave up your responsibilities upon broad and reconciled shoulders?
No.
Perhaps then, rather, at this moment, you are Socrates to my Alcibiades, taking it upon yourself to edify me.
Are you saying you want to fuck me?
What?
Well, you keep calling yourself Alcibiades to my Socrates. Are you proposing some sort of a homosexual connection between us?
I forgot that part of the story.
I like Tobolowsky's Jerry performance. I think he's really like he's very Weasley with his words. Hearst in this one has the great quote to him where he's like, "Do you ever mean anything that you say?" Just the epitome of the government buffoon that no one can stand. He's trying to weasel himself into all the deals, but like no one particularly enjoys his company at all. I think it's a great performance. I like the scenes between those two.
Yeah, he's a good addition. I'm glad they brought him back.
Any thoughts about the Hearst Swearingen plotline? It's basically what carries the whole, or the Alma being shot at and stuff like that. I mean, I can give you a quick sense. This is probably the most, one of the things I like about this watch through is that I've really grown to really like the Alma and Ellsworth relationship this season.
Yeah.
And I think that me and Amy were talking about it, just that Alma spent the entire season emasculating Ellsworth, and she does so here again in this one. However, this one's kind of unique in that me and Amy at least thought that Alma does the right thing here. And it's kind of a sad situation that Ellsworth just still can't defend her the way that he wants to. But Alma does the righteous and the correct thing of showing Hearst that she's not scared and has to walk alone on that walk, and she does. But it comes at the expense of, again, sort of not allowing Ellsworth to do the role that he thinks that he has to do to give himself purpose. Right. So what did you think?
Yeah, I thought that stuff was really great, and it's, I thought that Al's whole plan was so weirdly considerate of people that he really, there's no reason why he should care about. I mean, obviously it's a larger thing, but like the idea that it's like, go get Ellsworth, knock him out and tie him up, because if he hears what happened, he's going to go off and he's going to get himself killed, which is exactly what Hearst wants him to do.
Yep.
And then like he's emasculated in the situation, but yes, it is for his own good and her own good. And I guess it's like partial emasculation, because he does agree eventually, be like, yeah, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the Alma stuff was really good. I really liked her walk when she completes the walk, was cool.
I like the way they shot that, which is that the Pinkertons and the town people are walking on opposite sides of the thoroughfare, eyeballing each other.
Yeah, that stuff was really cool. I mean, it really did ratchet up the tension, because I was like, I don't know how this is going to go down. I assumed it wasn't going to start like a all-out gunfight or anything, but you never know with this show.
Yep. Yeah, I like the scene where Alma and Ellsworth are talking and she's explaining what she has to do while Al is up on the balcony, sort of overhearing it. I think the acting in that is really great from everybody involved. Like, Swearingen doesn't have any lines, McShane doesn't have any lines, but he's a vital part of that scene to be there in the background. And, Ellsworth has to deal with it. Alma decides that she has to do what she has to do. It's her moment of growing up, right? Because she's kind of a childish character. And it's just her end goal of becoming her own autonomous force that needs to, do what she needs to do in order to stand up to Hearst and to show the town isn't necessarily going to bend to his will and that he can't push people around the way that he wants to. It's good. I enjoy it. I think those two are a very good pair, Ellsworth and Alma too. I think that their relationship is a nice twist on things.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with them for the rest of the season, and if they are still together when the movie comes down the pike.
Yeah.
Because they do work really well together, and it is a very it's a bit of a mirror to Seth and Martha, to some extent of kind of being in a marriage of convenience and then trying to figure out whether or not they care about each other and to what extent, and how that shows itself given the personalities of the people involved. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting because it's right. It's like neither of their relationships are based on romantic interest in each other. Like at least from the start, they're kind of relationships of necessity that have to go, that have to be undertaken, and they are similar in that regard. And I think it's interesting that the show, it's a pretty positive perspective on relationships, I guess, which is that like the show's belief is that like the romantic relationship or like the love can come after the sort of like necessity of it happening for like the necessity of the relationship being there in the first place. So I don't know. It's the opposite of Saul and Trixie, I guess, which is just based on pure carnal pleasure, I think.
Right. Yeah. It's like the playing out of every one of those movies where it's where the villain is going to marry. It's like with the Sheriff of Nottingham marrying Maid Marian.
Yep.
And then she's like, I'll never love you. And then he's like, you will learn to love me. But it's like the positive version of that.
That's a very alpha move to say something like that. And as Deadwood is always going to have to do, the episode gets its title from the very throwaway scene where Constapleton is so horny that he wants to break the door down to get to those bosoms or whatever he says.
I was wondering if they were setting up like a spin-off or something, because this is the second time, I think, maybe the third, that they've just done a cutaway to like the Greek chorus of prostitutes.
Yes. Yeah. What they
just kind of commenting on the news of the day.
Yeah. And this one, they're talking about how they want to talk to Alma, but they don't know if she'll have anything to say to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I do like that they are all kind of impressed and inspired to a certain extent by what she has done and who she is.
Yeah. Yeah. Very relative to the time. I mean, she is like, she was born into it and married into it, but it is kind of, she is an inspiration. She does her on the bank, so she has created something. But yeah, she's definitely inspirational to those women.
She's like Marty McFly, encouraging black people to run for mayor and inventing rock and roll.
That's right. Yeah, just knock out all the things of the 50s and 60s that you have to get out of the way and move on to the next step. I still underrated joke is not this episode, but whenever Khan met that woman and he's talking about how his pants got shrunk at the laundry.
Yes.
That is that's an underrated scene.
Yeah. That's very good.
Damn chinks. So that storyline is continuing this one.
That reminds me of an Anchorman where he asks Veronica on a date, and she's like, you have this massive erection, and he's trying to walk back and he's blaming it on the pleats of his pants.
They'll do that. What'd you think of Cy in this episode? He meets the new prostitute, and he's been fiddling with his wounds, I guess, because Cy is in I guess the metaphor there is that he can't let himself be well. He keeps picking at himself. But
yeah,
what do you think about Cy at this point?
The scene where the doctor is looking at him is the kind of scene where I was trying to decide whether or not that's something that they should have shown him doing previous to this scene, or if it's such a small thing that it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Because, like, again, given no context for what's going on, he's looking at Cy's wound and telling him to stop picking whatever self-harming.
Yeah, he reopened the wound somehow by picking at it. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it said, but why would you abrade I don't know, maybe he's just washing himself. I don't know. But,
yeah, right.
Washing himself down with some steel wool.
That gravel voice needs some really some harsh cleaning.
Yeah, but it was the kind of thing where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like another show might throw in a quick moment here or there along the season of him picking at his thing, but on the other hand, it's like, doesn't really matter. I mean, you get the gist of it. He's clearly in a fucked up state, and as he's doing that, he's literally picking at his metaphor.
Yeah, so, I mean, does the metaphor become too heavy-handed? Like, I think it's a combination of it's not how the show does production. Like, they don't think about that. But I think on a storytelling level, I think it avoids the problem of Cy picking at his wound the entire season becomes like, Jesus, like lay off the sledgehammer a little bit.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. It's because it's a little on the nose or on the navel in this instance.
Because they did a similar thing with, they don't do it much anymore, I think, because Al's moved on, but Al would constantly itch his chopped off finger whenever he was stressed out about Hearst. And that was the metaphor there is that the memory of it is irritating him. But Cy is not the same. Cy and the Doc are interesting to pair each other. Is there someone who has taken a bigger screen time dive than Cochran as the series has progressed.
Yeah, this season especially, he's barely in it.
Yeah, he went from, I think one of the reviews was saying, like, I think he got nominated for an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor in the first season, which is probably deserved because he's in it quite a bit. And he got tuberculosis in this season. I think that's the only thing that he does, right? He gets sick and otherwise takes care of his eye.
I mean, it's obviously not equal screen time, but Wu has taken a huge hit the last couple seasons. He's only, I think so far he's been in like one episode this season, maybe two.
Yeah.
And not very long either time. But yeah, the Tolliver thing is, I'm assuming the bit with the new prostitute is him sort of finding a new person to squeeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joni got away, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he's
new person to lord over.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but I mean, Tolliver's development seems to have stalled out at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I think we talked about it in the previous episode, but in the context of the show being canceled, it's less concerning. But if the show is ongoing, I think that the show has a real problem understanding what Sai is supposed to do at this point.
Do you know how... well, I guess it doesn't matter anymore, but did they find themselves tied to actual history to a point that it stopped them from making certain decisions? Like, so for instance, let's say you get to the point, it's like, well, we got nothing to do with Sai. It's like, well, he lives until 1910. It's like, well, we can't kill him. Like,
yes. That they did... they mentioned in the Bible that Milch wanted to maintain historical accuracy to a degree. So, like, he was hindered in certain characters can't die in certain situations.
Sure.
And
that's in Leviticus, they say that.
Exactly, yeah. And other things kind of have to happen. Like, there is no season 4, right? But we'll talk about this more as we get to right before the movie. The idea in the later seasons was that they wanted to end the show with the way that the town of Deadwood was actually destroyed, which was in a flood and a fire.
At the same time?
No, I think it flooded and then it dried out and it caught on fire after that, unfortunately. But he wanted to do both of those.
Then they built it back up and it sank into the swamp again.
It fell off the cliff.
The fourth one stayed up.
They wanted to do that, but they obviously never got to the season. And spoilers, it doesn't happen in this season. But they were constrained that way. Like Milch talks about that. He wanted to maintain it to be at least somewhat historically accurate. So he's not allowed to get rid of people that are not allowed to get rid of in that way. Like he stayed true to Reverend Smith, right? Like Reverend Smith died in the way that they lined it up historically was that they just dropped his body in the road because that's how he was found in real life instead of dying of murder, you know?
They don't want to do that thing where it's like, well, it says here, Cy Tolliver went to Wichita for a week, and we posit, what if that week was actually 8 months?
It was a long trip. But at the same time, George Hearst is apparently in real history a very benevolent capitalist. Like he was apparently fairly progressive for his time. So that's just one of those things.
Mr. Hearst.
Have you enjoyed yourself today, Farnham?
For reasons I find elusive, the day has quite displeased me.
What will help you find a name for your feelings? Shall we cut open your belly for you to wrap your guts around a pole?
You seem distraught.
I am not! I await an outcome, and the readying for it wearies me.
Oh, dear.
Have you smelt human flesh on the spit?
How would I have?
I know the smell.
You have been to and fro in the world.
It pleased me to find out.
Well, then, fine.
Don't you want to wipe that off?
No?
You would regret my coming back and finding that you had cleaned your face.
It's a good thing he wasn't around to write angry letters like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Listen, kid.
Did I tell you the stuff? Did we already go over that about the Kareem thing with Cordy?
It sounds familiar. I couldn't tell you the story back. Yeah.
So I apologize if I've already said this, but one of in Winning Time, one of the things that was Kareem objected at objected to is a scene where a kid comes and asks him for an autograph, and he tells him to fuck off.
Yep.
And he says, I would never do that, never in a million years. Well, our friend Sean Cordy, who had been on the Star Trek podcast years ago,
yes,
has a story about going to a Revolution game, New England Revolution game, and he was in a box.
Yeah.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in that box. And so his dad said, you should go over and ask him for an autograph. And so he did, and Kareem told him to piss off. So selective memory about thine self, Kareem.
Sean can be a consultant for that HBO show or Showtime or whatever it was on. Yeah. That's
But I guess Kareem won that battle because the show got canceled.
Listen, kid, I'm out there busting my ass every day.
Yeah, exactly. Have you watched Winning Time?
No, not outside of like a trailer or something.
They show the filming of that scene.
Oh, do they? Nice.
Of Airplane in like the first episode. And when they call cut, the directors are the actual directors of Airplane, are Zucker, Abrams, and Zucker.
Yep. That's
pretty fun.
That's a nice touch. Those guys must be old at this point, right?
They're like in their
de-age them?
70s.
Oh, okay.
No, they're just there. I mean, it's a half-second shot.
Yeah. Well, John is the person that would happen to, so I'm glad that I'm glad that
I know. Maybe it speaks more about Sean than it does about Kareem.
Sean, I mean, I know it's only in a perfect movie world that you come up with a perfect comeback, but I mean, Sean should have just said, "My dad says that you're not trying that hard at the games or whatever." Anyway, back to this. Is there any plot line that we haven't touched on here?
We didn't talk about Johnny's Jack in the Box story, which I really liked.
Sometimes you
love
wind it
Johnny.
up. Yep. Yeah.
This show is just so good at taking these side characters and giving you one moment in a random episode that just endears them to you for life. And I can't remember what it was with Johnny, but I know there was one. And ever since then, I'm like, Johnny's the fucking best.
Wasn't when he said, "If you tell me it wasn't an ass fuck, I'll believe you," in the previous episode?
It might have been. It might have been that one.
Yeah, Johnny's excellent some side character stuff. Everyone has stuff to do. It's one of the nice things about the show. Maybe to limited degrees if you're Doc Cochran, but everyone's got something.
We didn't talk about Joni and
oh, that's right,
Jane.
And I feel bad. Maybe I haven't. I don't know how you feel. I feel maybe I've given short shrift to those characters in our podcast about the show. I don't know if you would agree with that. I think the problem is that I like them, but I don't super emotionally connect with their story in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Mostly, like we've talked about Joni's thing, where it feels like Joni has just kind of been stuck for a long time, and she's not strongly drawn enough in a way that you feel. There's no moment where Joni stomps on a Pinkerton's balls, right? Like there's no like catharsis thing. And Jane, I like Jane, and I really like her speech about the dream, her monologue about the dream. But I just don't. There are tough characters and stories to talk about on the podcast, if that makes sense.
Some fucking day.
It was a good day.
Only wish some of Hearst's pistoleros had come to test our mettle.
Once my Derringer was empty, you would have been firing for the both of us.
And equal to the task, believe you fucking me? Not that I wouldn't have regretted them children having a witness. Can I tell you something?
Okay.
Some stupid fucking thing. Stupid fucking dream I had.
Okay.
I dreamed last night I was clambering up a fucking creek bank, which is often required of a drunk. It was dark, and I couldn't tell where I was till I cleared the bank and come face to face with Charlie Utter's ugly mug. Now, Charlie's, as usual, on the lookout for Bill. That's his usual too, losing at poker inside the joint we're outside. Where are we, Charlie? I asked, and this could be any fucking place the last number of years. And he said, Jane, don't you know this is the number 10 saloon here in the camp where Bill's gonna fucking get killed soon? Jesus Christ. How do you know, Charlie? I asked him. He said, Don't you know, he says, at some point, we know these fucking things. Don't you know the world says its fucking name to us? What the fuck? What the fuck do I have to dream about this for? I say to Charlie. Wasn't I miserable enough? Jane, fucking Charlie says to me, don't you know this is the night you couldn't look out for that little girl when you was at Cochran's and Swearingen come in and scared you and you went down to the creek to weep. That's where the fuck you're coming from. And don't you know, he says, this is the night you spirit that child from Cochran's into where our stock was outside of camp, and we watched out on that little girl and sung to her, and you, with the presence of mind to continue the fucking round when I was too fucking stupid. And you said, you would row, 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 and I said, row, row, row your boat. And we had this.
Yeah. I will say that monologue was veering a little close to Simple Jack territory for me. Where I was like, what she was saying was good, but just like she's doing the whole thing through that drunken Jane thing.
Yes.
And there's a part of me that's going like, all right, maybe this doesn't hold up if you really let it air out.
Gotcha. Limited
this style here.
Yeah, limited doses.
But yeah, what she was talking about was great. Like, and like the callback to what happened with Al was really good, and how that's basically kind of informed everything she's done since then.
Yeah.
Which is really great.
Just dreaming about Bill, dreaming about her happy moment with Charlie and the girl and stuff like that, and just sort of reliving her story essentially with the sadness of never really being able to get what she wanted, and that's why she keeps repeating the line, and then you kissed me, and then they kiss, and that's the end of the scene.
Yeah, I think we've been giving him short shrift just because the show has kind of done that.
Yep.
Because like anybody on the show, they kind of get slotted into bench players in favor of the other stuff that's more exciting. However, we'll say, because I just looked it up, according to the New York Post, Doc Cochran, Joni Stubbs, and Cy Tolliver are all fictional characters. So they could have killed off Cy Tolliver.
Sure.
But they didn't. And they could have just said to Joni, why don't you just leave town?
Why don't you just leave? Yeah, Joni, I mean, that makes sense with Cy. I probably should have remembered that, because we also talked about how they held it over Tolliver, or over Powers Booth's head, that Cy could die from these things between seasons. So, yeah, so thank you for refreshing my memory. But maybe if there's a better name that is not historically fictional, that you can't do things with them. But I like the thing about the Booth one is that I like the performance so much, but it's clear that the character doesn't have anywhere to go, really. Like he's just done at that point. I think that the same is for the thing that Cy has going for him, beyond the fact that I love the performance, is that Cy has an impact on the town storylines in a way that Joni and Jane don't, really.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that, yeah.
So it gives him a little bit of oomph to his story.
I think they're trying to give her a little bit of that agency back, though, by, I think last season she was really kind of all over the place, and what she was doing. I think last season she was kind of in the position that Langrish and the theater troupe are in, where they're doing what they're doing, but it's really kind of disconnected from everything else that's going on. Like it's great for Joni that she's trying to break free from Cy and to start her own place and whatnot. But it's not really connected to anything until Walcott?
Yeah, Walcott,
right?
Yeah.
Until Walcott kills everybody.
Right.
Whereas this season, what she's doing with the kids seems to be helps the town sort of modernize itself. X, Y, and Z. She's helping out Jane to kind of bring her back to the real world.
Building
so
things.
She feels, she feels more. And I mean, I guess that's probably part of it too, right? Like, I think for her, she kind of needs to hit that bottom before she can readjust what she's about and start doing stuff that is what's the word I'm looking for here? More productive.
Yeah, productive. Yeah, I guess it's just that her storyline is very I don't know if abstract is the right word, but it's like it's very symbolic or something. Like there's not a lot of concrete action tied to it. It's just
a lot of her sitting around kind of looking distraught.
Yeah, looking distraught. And like, you know, she'll have a small conversation with someone that will inspire her story, and it shows you that she's developed. And like when Sai comes around, she's not scared of Sai anymore the way that she used to be. And there's stuff like that, but it's just not you know, even in Alma's terms, like I feel like the strength of Alma's character is the fact that she's unlikable and likable at the same point, but she has these strong relations with other characters on the show, like Ellsworth and Swearingen. And the Joni and Jane just they have each other, and that's nice and it's good for them, but it's just not as compelling of a story as some of the other ones are.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Apparently, also Bullock marrying his brother's widow is made up.
Yes, that's. I knew that was made up. Or is it made up, or there's something?
The fact that there's no evidence that he had a brother, but he and Martha were apparently childhood sweethearts.
That's right. Yeah, they were childhood, so they knew each other for a very long time. Right.
But maybe they mean they were her son's childhood sweethearts. So for the childhood of her son before he died. They were sweethearts. It's all about the way you interpret the words, Wes.
It is. It's what the meaning of is.
Exactly.
Anything else about this one? I think those are all the storylines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's...
sorry. The last thing.
Sure.
I really, really enjoyed watching Seth glitch out like a Westworld robot as he's
cutting his
telling
ham.
him everything that had happened in the day.
and Seth,
it took me a minute to realize what was going on, but like it's a perfect wordless scene where it's like they just cut to him and he's like twitching, freaking out, and then you realize, oh, he's at dinner with Saul and Martha, who probably just told him everything that happened while he was gone.
Yeah.
And it's just excellent stuff.
Do you I like the concept of it. I thought it was another scene of the miscasting problem for Bullock.
I did think as I was watching it, I was like, he's stuck on his Seth Bullock switch is in the on position.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like it seemed like a rehearsal or something where he was trying to find the correct response. And so he was running through all of his whole library of Seth Bullock expressions.
He's like, it looks like, his Bullock, but he's kind of doing like a low energy version of like Will Ferrell's like Harry Carey impersonation, where he's just like, his head is shaking.
He's like the early stages of when Roger Rabbit drinks a drink of liquor before the steam comes out of his ears and he rockets through the roof.
Yeah.
For all the kids listening, Roger Rabbit is a fictional character from a movie called Who Framed Roger Rabbit from 1987.
Could have killed him. He's fictional. I feel bad. I like Oliphant, but I really do think that Bullock would have probably maintained a stronger presence on the show if he wasn't if he wasn't cast that way. But I'm not even sure it's necessary. You know, it's like there's what it is. Would you say that Swearingen is the main character of the show? Through and through. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just looking at the quote. You keep calling yourself Alcibiades to my Socrates. Are you proposing some sort of homosexual connection between us? I'd forgotten that part of the story.
How come Alma didn't want to eat Jules' food?
Just nervous, I think. Didn't feel well. Yeah. Which plant did she eat from? She ate from them both. Just Trixie making Jewel feel happy. And if another great band name is the Cocksuckers Brigade, in command of the All Horde Detachment. Yeah.
What was the What was said when Al like circles the troops in the bar, and is it Trixie who walks out by them? Is that the cocksucker brigade line?
No, he says it's when he's talking to Barrett the Pinkerton. He's like, "What regiment did you serve in?" And he says, "I was in the famous cocksucker brigade." Yeah.
Trixie has a good line though when she walks down and walks through the bar when they're all kind of circled. I can't remember what it is though. But.
Yeah, it's the brain trust of the bar. Some comments about that.
That's
right?
what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's it. It's a constant throb. I guess my short summary.
Why is that so funny when there's a doofus or a couple of doofuses and the thing that you say to them is to refer to them as like rocket scientists or brain surgeons?
Just look at these brain cells rubbing together over here. Look at the things that we've got cooking up. Tom Nuttall's in that group too. And Tom Nuttall's being competent. Yeah, so it's Deadwood wrapping up. I like Constant Throb. I think that it's well paced. I like all the episodes. It's one that like it held my attention. I like the catharsis of the turning of the tables on Hearst. I like Angry Hearst. I like the interaction. I love the Jerry and Hearst scene. I love the Hearst and AB scene. I like it has another we didn't really talk about it, but it's kind of like some of my favorite scenes from the show are Swearingen talking to somebody in his office. There's just so many great scenes of him. In this one, it's him and Barrett talking. Him and Persimmon Phil have a great interaction in the first season. All that stuff. And it has one of those scenes here, which is the Barrett and Swearingen scene in the office. Just good stuff, I think.
Yeah. This is a really good one. I'm glad to see the show having episodes like this towards the end of the season, because given how much television you and I've watched, there is a tendency for these things to just peter out, especially if they're going into their final incarnation. So it's nice to see that they're still throwing heaters this deep.
Yep. Yeah, and just to be clear, the show was unaware it was the show was not canceled at this point yet. So they're operating under the idea that things are going to continue in another couple seasons. So, but we only have 2 episodes left after this one. It's Catbird Seats is our next episode. So that's it. Clay, did you have any final thoughts? We're going to wrap it up here with all the tag along stuff at the end.
Remember when Netflix canceled Glow during the pandemic?
Is that the wrestling show?
Yeah. That was bullshit. They were just about to start they were just about to start doing season 4, and then they just canceled the whole show.
Yep.
And it's really unfortunate because that was a great show. They should do a movie. They should do a movie like they did for Deadwood, but for Glow.
Right. Just 30 years later, all the actors come back, and it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll. Our plans are we will do the Deadwood movie. We'll take a little bit of time off to get ourselves into the mindset of what it was like to have the Deadwood movie come out like 15 years after the show ended to see if we can forget a few things.
We're going to do an episode where we react to 9/11 in real time.
That's right. We have to go through the Great Recession, the market has to crash, all that stuff. Will go on.
Yeah, we are both going to celebrate that we've each bought houses at the worst possible time in our lives.
It'll bounce back. Just hold on to it, Clay. Don't sell now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I'm going to convince you to buy a shorted stock, which I'm excited about.
Michael Lewis has a great book about this stuff. We'll do the movie. We'll do a couple podcasts before then. I think that we'll do probably a Western movie. We'll probably do the pilot episode for Luck, the pilot for John from Cincinnati, and then the Hitman movie that Oliphant did right after the show got canceled. So that'll give us a nice break. Maybe we'll add one more into that mix.
It's fun. We've been talking about different Westerns to do. We talked about Wild Bill because they shot it on the same sets.
Yeah, and it deals with his Deadwood time, his end of his life in Deadwood.
Yep. And The Searchers, actually, the co-star of The Searchers, the guy whose name I can't remember, is Captain Pike from the original Star Trek.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep. He's the half Native American guy that John Wayne fucking hates and is racist to the whole movie.
Well, it all comes together, I guess, at a certain point. Excellent. Yeah, we'll check that out too. And if you guys like listening to Deadwood characters in Star Trek, we did the Voyager episode where Doc Cochran was that Bajoran character on the Star Trek Voyager.
Probably one of the better episodes of the series.
What the hell was that one called?
Is that true? That's true, right?
His character was fun. I don't think Basics was one of the best, but we'll see. His character.
Anytime there's an episode of Star Trek where it's one person acting their ass off in the brig is usually one of the better episodes of the series. I don't know why that is.
I want Gerald McRaney to be on Star Trek Voyager at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever happens.
You're telling me we can't slap a 31st century Starfleet uniform on him and have him be an admiral or something on Discovery?
He'd be a great admiral. He'd be a great admiral on Discovery. I want him to spit in Neelix's face and tell him not to wipe it off. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This is Something Pretty. You can support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile, patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And that's the best way to do it. A couple bucks a month, you get extra stuff. There's a whole bunch of podcasts out there. And if the podcast, this one, is over, you can still give a couple bucks on Patreon as a just dessert. So thanks very much for listening. Thank you for supporting us. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we head out?
Check out Rotten Horror Picture Show on Patreon, where we're doing video nasties. We just did Last House on the Left, which might have irreparably scarred Amanda.
I've never seen that. I listened to your podcast about it. I didn't realize it was so controversial of a movie.
Oh yeah, that's a doozy. It's very tonally very strange.
Yeah,
but it really is the reason, as I say on the show, it feels like Last House on the Left feels like the movie everyone thinks the video nasties are going to be, whereas most of them are more similar to the one we're doing in November, which is a movie called Evil Speak, which is about Clint Howard at military school who summons the devil using a computer.
You sure?
In like 1984. And we just put up, Badass just put up our coverage of the Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond movie.
Yep.
So check that out. We'll be back pretty soon with season 3 of Batman Beyond.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Support it all. Patreon.com/thepenskyfile. So that's it for this episode. We are done with A Constant Throb. The next episode is the penultimate episode called The Catbird Seats. So we'll be back next week with that. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. We'll see you then.
How you doing, Ellsworth?
What the fuck did you hit me for?
Did you realize that was me?
You think I'm asking out of general suspicion?
All right, I'll tell you what happened. Fill you in on the full fucking circumstance. Now, Mrs. Ellsworth is completely safe. Calm down, or I will hit you over the fucking head again. Maybe use some more of them spirits under your goddamn nose.
What happened?
Well, there was some completely no fucking damage done gunfire taken at Miss Ellsworth fore and aft. But she couldn't be no better.
Kill that cocksucker. You get out of my way or I'll kill you fucking first.
Fruitless struggle, Ellsworth, and stupid goddamn thinking. Why would they take shots at Miss Ellsworth fore and aft when they could have just blowed her fucking head off? God
damn it.
Calm down and think about it. They took shots at her fore and aft so that you would come running. So they could do to you what they could have done to her, but they didn't. And to Bullock, too, maybe. So do you see how goddamn irresponsible it would have been of me to allow you full fucking conscious movement? Do you see?